500,000 infected worldwide as economic toll rises. App News. The human and economic toll of the lockdowns against the coronavirus mounted Thursday as India struggled to feed the multitudes. Italy shut down most of its industry, and a record-shattering 3.3 million Americans applied for unemployment benefits in a single week. The U.S. surpassed official Chinese government numbers to become the country with most reported infections, as the number of cases worldwide topped 500,000 and deaths climbed past 24,000. The damage to people's livelihoods and their well-being from the effort to flatten the rising curve started to come into focus. In India, where the country's 1.3 billion people were under orders to stay home, legions of poor were suddenly thrown out of work, and many families were left struggling for something to eat. "Our first concern is food, not the virus," said Suresh Kumar, 60, a bicycle rickshaw rider in New Delhi whose family of 6 relies on his daily earnings of 300 rupees, or $4. "I don't know how I will manage." India has the world's second highest number of people living in extreme poverty, with produce peddlers, the maids and other low-wage workers living day-to-day. The government announced a 1.7 trillion rupee ($22 billion) economic stimulus package to deliver monthly rations of grain and lentils to 800 million people around the globe. The death toll rose to about 8,200 in Italy, 4,300 in Spain and 1,700 in France, including a 16-year-old. The U.S. had about 1,300 deaths, about 400 of them in New York State, the worst hotspot in the nation. Most of those victims were in New York City, where hospitals are getting swamped. A running count kept by Johns Hopkins University showed the United States now had the most reported cases of any country Thursday, with more than 85,000. Italy and China, the latter of which was the origin of the outbreak late last year, both had reported more than 80,000. Louisiana was quickly becoming another smoldering hotspot. The number of new cases there jumped by more than 500 Thursday, for a total of over 2,300, with 86 deaths, including a 17-year-old, the health department said. The higher infection numbers reflected an increase in testing. New Orleans was gearing up for a possible overflow at hospitals, with plans to treat as many as 3,000 patients at the city's convention center. From New York's Fifth Avenue and London's Piccadilly Circus to the boulevards of Paris and the streets of Rome and Madrid, restaurants, hotels, airlines, giant chains and small shops are all shuttered, and factories across both continents have ground to a halt, as cities, states and entire countries have ordered the closing of non-essential businesses and instructed people to stay home. Companies in Europe are laying off workers at the fastest pace since 2009, according to surveys of business managers. And the U.S. is bleeding jobs as well. The number of Americans applying for unemployment benefits last week was nearly 5 times the old record set in 1982. Dan Dykers, 37, of Portland, Oregon, was laid off from his job helping design and set up displays for trade shows. "Everything is so surreal," he said. "I can't even get an interview for another job. And we now have to worry more about being careful and taking care of ourselves." In Georgia, 33-year-old Ian Smith was let go from his job at a wine bar and is working side hustles and relying on the generosity of friends. "On my worst days, it's hopelessness, and on some of my better days, it's what possibility can I create in all of this," he said. "I can't pretend that I always feel that, though." In a rare positive sign, stocks rallied on Wall Street for the third straight day after an unprecedented $2.2 trillion economic rescue package to help businesses, hospitals and ordinary Americans pull through the crisis won passage in the Senate. The Dow Jones Industrial Average jumped more than 1,350 points or over 6%. The rescue plan, which is expected to be voted on in the House on Friday, would dispense checks of $1,200 per adult and $500 per child. President Donald Trump, meanwhile, announced that federal officials are developing guidelines to rate counties by the risk of virus spread, as he aims to ease the restrictions meant to slow the outbreak. Deborah Birx, the White House coronavirus response coordinator, said the task force is concerned about certain counties in the Midwest that appear to be seeing a rapid increase in cases. She listed two: Wayne County in Michigan and Cook County in Illinois. Montana joined the growing list of U.S. states ordering residents to stay home to fight the virus spread. Italy, the Eurozone's third biggest economy and a major exporter of machinery, textiles and other goods, became perhaps the first Western developed nation to idle most of its industry, extending a shutdown on smaller, non-essential businesses to heavy manufacturers. Among the companies in Italy that have shut down or rolled back production, Fiat Chrysler, Ferrari, Pirelli Tires and Luxottica Eyewear, maker of Ray-Bans and Oakleys. The industrial lobby Confindustria estimates a cost of €70 billion to €100 billion, $77 billion, $110 billion of national wealth per month if 70% of companies are closed, as anticipated. "We are entering a war economy," said Confindustria President Vincenzo Bocca. Elsewhere around the world, South Africa, with the most industrialized economy in Africa, headed into a 3-week lockdown starting Friday. The country is already in recession, with an unemployment rate of 29%. And Britain unveiled another relief effort, this time aimed at the gig economy, many of whose workers are facing financial ruin. The government will give the self-employed grants equal to 80% of their average profits, up to £2,500, $2,975 per month. In other developments, New York State's death toll jumped by 100 in one day, pushing the number to 385, Gov. Andrew Cuomo said.